Hi, g'day, ladies and gentlemen. James Bartoli here from the Conscious Truth Network, and I'm here again with Alex, okay? And our last interview we were talking about the law, common law, the difference between real law and legislation, directives, acts, statutes, and we got a lot of really good feedback. And I've recently got some letters I'm dealing with Fines Victoria and vicroads trying to put defect notices on my car and blah, blah, blah. So I thought I'd get in touch with Alex so I can have a chat and get some personal advice in my situation, and also film this so we can get some of his years and years and years of wisdom and knowledge compressed into 30 minutes to an hour. And, you know, you can all benefit from this. So, Alex, how you going, mate?
Oh, I'm great. Thanks, James. It's good to catch up with you again.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I want to start off with, let's just start off with authority. Like, let's say the government or the police or vicroads. How do they have the authority to actually demand money from people, demand people to do things? It's like, why don't you have the authority to go, you know, with a weapon down the street and demand money and extortion from people? Why? How do these people, these corporations, have the authority?
That's a really good question. And the bottom line is they don't. They have as much authority as you do. You can make a demand of somebody. The question is that other person going to pay it? Now, of course, if you don't have a gun and you go down to the guy down the road and say, look, I demand you give me $100, he's going to tell you where to go. If you go down there with a gun, they're going to say, well, now you're trying to rob me because you've got no authority. And this is a really important point to know, because who are these authorities that supposedly say that they can take money away from us? And in cases when it's the police, they're actually armed. So what authority do they really have? Well, to do that, we've got to go back to you. And when I'm talking here, I'm talking about people who are born on the land here in what we would call Australia. Now, if you've come from another country, it still applies to you. But if you're born on this land, you're actually a national of Terra Australis. That's what the land is called, Terra Australis. And it got that name because they knew there was a land somewhere down here, going back 300 years. They knew there was a land down here, and it was called Terra Australis Incognito, otherwise known as the Southern Land Unknown, undiscovered. But when it was discovered, it was known as Terra Australis. But when the white men landed on this country, they discovered that it was already occupied. So therefore, they couldn't claim it terra nullius, as in unoccupied land. They couldn't claim it because it belonged to our First Nation people. I don't like calling them the Aborigines. It's not an appropriate term, or Indigenous, because we're all Indigenous now. So the First Nation people, or the Koori Nations, are the occupants of this land. And they will tell you that the owners of the land are the great spirits, what we might call God, or the great consciousness, whatever you want to call it. The owner of something is the entity that creates it. So the land, and this is where we can do another wonderful talk when we're talking about who owns your house. The land is owned by the creator, okay? And we are all caretakers. So when the Westerners landed here, they couldn't claim ownership of the land because they weren't living on it. So what they did, being very clever corporate people that they were, they found an island off the coast of Australia, now known as Norfolk Island, and they established Australia on Norfolk Island, and they claimed ownership of it. And that's now registered with the Securities Commission in the US and all of that, and that's where it's the administration of this land that we are on, Terra Australis, sits. So what they did was they offered those people who were living on this land, saying, we'll administer the land for you from Australia, Commonwealth of Australia, off in Norfolk Island. And they deceived people into saying, you must get a birth certificate. You must register your birth. Oh, people said, oh, okay. Because normally in the past, your name was just written down in the back of a family Bible or a church Bible. That's where your birth or your being born was recorded. But the state came along and said, well, we have to try and control you. We have to try and own you. So we've got to get you off the land into the sea, because that's where all of our rules and regulations apply. Maritime law, lex fori, law of the sea, SEE, which is the Vatican, the law of the Vatican. So they convinced everybody to register their birth. Okay, and then what they did after registering the birth, and by the way, I'll mention it now, how much does it cost to register the birth of someone?
A life?
Nothing. Nothing. It doesn't cost anything to register the birth. And what do they put down when they register you? They put down 4 pieces of information: the date you were born, the place you were born, the names that your parents gave you, and your gender. Okay, so 4 pieces of information that identify you were put down into a register for free forever. Okay, and that's important as when we get later and we start talking about cars. So here you are, you've been convinced to register the details of you being born, and the state being the very clever little manipulators that they are, they create a birth certificate. Okay, now if you're already being registered and they've got record, what do they need to create a birth certificate for? Well, because they've got a little plan up their sleeve, and their plan is that they're going to create a trust fund using your name, and they're going to trade that trust fund all around the world, and they're going to convince you through a whole lot of tricks that they have, that you are the very capital lettered entity. And I've got her here ready for us. Here she is, Mary Jane Smith, we're going to call her. She is the paper version. She's a fictitious paper version of you. Now, because they've now dragged you into the world of fiction, this is how they're going to control you from that point onwards. So, for instance, New South Wales people who are watching, your administrators sit on Lord Howe Island. That's where New South Wales actually is, Lord Howe Island.
Quick question, Alex. If they couldn't claim the landmass of Australia, how did they do it with these Norfolk Island and this other island? How did they do that then?
Because there was no one living on those islands. There was no living people on those islands when they landed on them. Therefore, they were able to claim the land.
Got it. Okay.
Now, remember, a claim of land does not mean that you own the land. You're just claiming you own it. Now, if someone comes along and says, well, no, I'm claiming it, the other person says, well, I was here first and I've claimed it first, therefore you're going to have a stronger claim than me. But the reality is no one owns land. And that'll be a really good episode for us to have down the track when we start talking about land, okay? So what they're claiming is the administration of the land, okay, and the administration of the people. Now, the states are all fictions. They're not real. You can't pick them up. You can't hold them. A state is a fiction. It only exists on paper. So all of these entities, being non-living entities, cannot claim authority over a living being. They can only claim authority over a non-living entity. Our fictitious paper, Mary Jane, not Mary Jane of the family Smith, who is a real living entity. They can't claim that. They can only do this. So they have to deceive you into acting as this all the time, as the paper entity. That's how they claim authority. And if you are tricked into agreeing that you are a paper entity, then they've got authority over you because you've consented to be acting as the paper entity. So that's where our authority supposedly comes from, because as a living being, the only entity that has authority over you is your creator. Now, if you don't believe in God, that's fine. If you don't believe in a creative consciousness or whatever, that's fine too. But something ultimately created you, and it certainly wasn't the government.
Mm. And okay, continuing on that with authority, because in their eyes there is like an authority, and it's meant to be the Queen, yeah, and there's meant to be a correct process for enacting acts with the royal assent and certificate of proclamation, publication, gazette, blah blah blah, where there is like humans who do have authority, but they still like moved away from that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. The question
Yeah.
is, who gives them the authority? Did you give the Queen the authority to be a queen?
Well, no.
No, I certainly didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody gave her the authority, and it certainly wasn't us.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this brings up an interesting thing about the Constitution. And there's a lot of people in this country who are really pushing the Constitution and saying, we've got to follow the Constitution of 1901, and that's the lawful thing, and the Queen's been removed. But who set up the Constitution? That's a good question.
Yeah.
Who set up the Constitution? Well, it was set up by the colonies.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at what the Latin derivative of the colony is, a colony is a group of slaves. Okay? So the people who set up the Constitution was a group of slaves creating rules for other groups of slaves to administer their business. Okay, so our Constitution that we have here in Australia was set up still under the administration of the overlords.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the Constitution was not set up by free people. A lot of people sort of forget that minor point. And they're great rules. Don't get me wrong. I don't think the Constitution is a bad instrument. I think the original Constitution is a very good instrument. But for the people who claim the authority, they see the Constitution as a set of rules created by slaves for slaves, not for them. That's why they ignore it. That's why the powers up there just ignore the Constitution, because they don't see it's relevant to them.
How did they?
Then, of course, Then, of course, you had the Constitution and everything changed by the Australia Act in 1985 and the Acts of Whitlam and all of that. And all of that's really interesting. It's really interesting, thievery and deception going right through. But if you strip it back to saying you are a living man or woman born on the land, that's where your rights are. Don't get caught up in any other rubbish.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going from one prison cell to another prison cell in the same prison. You want to be out of the prison.
Mm-hmm.
When you're on the land, when you're on the land in Australia, you are a non-alien, non-citizen national of Terra Australis.
Oh man, I've got a couple questions in my head now. Okay, with the Constitution, because overall the Constitution is a good instrument, right? Like the rules and whatever's written in there does seem to be for the benefit of the people. If it was written by the slaves in the colonies and stuff, why did it end up being so good and for the people then? If in 1901 when it was created, why didn't they make it more restrictive in the beginning compared to slowly totalitarian tiptoe making our lives more restricted and enslaved with all these acts over 120 years from then? Why didn't they just do more restriction when they first created it?
That's a really good question. And understand that the people who created our common law, created the Constitution, were very, very aware of the deceptive nature of lawyers and of the system that they were breaking away from. Remember, most of these people were criminals, and they'd been subjected to the legal system in the UK and being deported out here. So they knew how corrupt it was. So when they created a constitution, they were very aware of all of those aspects of it and were trying to protect the people from the very draconian legal system that we now have overruling us, okay? The people that's overruling us, they knew, so they were giving them the illusion of freedom. They let them come up with their own constitution, giving them the illusion of freedom, full well knowing that according to them, they were just slaves anyway. So let the slaves make the rules for themselves. They don't apply to us.
Okay.
Now, the people of the time, they had almost forgotten what their pure common law rights were.
Mm-hmm.
If they were fully aware of what we're of today, the Constitution would be very different.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be a lot simpler, and there'd be a lot more ruling out of corporate interference. But they did the best they could at the time that they could, and it was great until we started to wake up.
Yeah.
When we started to wake up, the overlords then started to infiltrate our parliaments to construct legislation to steal our rights away from us because we were waking up to them.
Yeah. Okay. So they gave the people there the illusion of freedom by creating your own document, this instrument called the Constitution, because they knew full well it doesn't matter. Like that, they're just going to have other clever tactics and ways to get around the Constitution, as they have 120 years on from when it was created, and the Constitution isn't followed whatsoever, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of the main reasons that the Constitution's not followed is that we don't even have a proper government. What we have is a foreign invading corporation that has usurped power from what we initially created, which was a form of government by the people, for the people. Now, all the legislation that was originally created, legislation doesn't apply to the people. It applies to the government, the elected representatives. Mm-hmm. So all of the legislation was supposed to be rules and guidelines for them to administer our Commonwealth. Okay, and what happened was the powers started infiltrating our system and getting representatives elected so that they could take over the government from the people without them even being aware of it. And once they had their numbers, they started to have political parties who all had agendas, and they actually created the two main parties, like the two wings, the left wing and the right wing of the same bird.
Yeah.
And they keep fluttering the wings so much that all we see is the wings, and we don't notice the beak that's picking us to pieces.
I like that. That's
so
good.
Then they started creating legislations against the people. Not for the control of the government, but to put the power with the government to control the people.
Mm-hmm. Let me just emphasize that first.
They just let it keep happening.
So what you said, to emphasize, legislation was originally introduced to control what the government does, not to the people. And then you're saying then they've introduced legislation against the people, which is
absolutely,
unlawful.
Absolutely. They flipped it.
Yes. Yeah, keep going.
So they flipped it so that they have claimed control over the people. And the people have just laid down or bent over and taken it. But people have been waking up and they're going, wait a minute, our government's not serving us. Our government is a foreign party. It's an invading party. We are actually under martial law. We're under martial law. Our government is not even who you think it is.
Mm-hmm. I've heard the police be referred to as a paramilitary as well in the past.
Yeah, the police. I'll give you a good example. Here in Victoria, we have a thing called the Victoria Police Act. Okay. Now that's all in lowercase letters. Victoria Police Act. We have a totally separate entity called Victoria Police, which is all capital letters. And that is a trading name of a corporation. So when you're dealing with Victoria Police in lowercase letters, you're dealing with constables, people who are there to keep the peace. This is a common law jurisdiction.
Okay.
So these guys wear two hats. Police wear two hats, and they're being deceived. So I feel sorry for the people who go in there thinking that they're helping the people, because they're not. They're being used as a revenue raiser and a controller. Now, ultimately, who owns this corporation? The corporation is owned by the United Nations. And who's the United Nations owned by? Owned by the Vatican.
So how do you find that
member
information?
Sorry?
Where do you look to find that trail of breadcrumbs?
Oh, look, there's enough places on the web to find out who owns all of these things. Follow the money.
Mm-hmm.
Follow the money trail. Where does the money go back? It all goes back to the Vatican.
Mm-hmm.
Everything.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. And like it's from looking at so many different things and spending years. But I mean, for me, it would be good if there was some site, if you can look at the Victoria Police or the Australian government, and then you have like a company trail, and then you can see if it's directly linked to the United Nations. And because I haven't found explicitly that. I mean, I found, the Commonwealth of Australia, that's registered in Washington. That's pretty easy to find.
Yeah.
But tying to the United Nations, have you seen anything like that?
Oh, look, I've probably seen a dozen documents over the time to do all of that. At the end of the day, it depends on how deep you want to go down the rabbit hole. For the average person that's perhaps watching this, just punch in Victoria Police or whatever and see where they're registered. They'll come up as a trading name of a corporation. Well, the minute it's a corporation, there's trouble, because that's not your government. Government's not supposed to be a corporation, because corporations are about business. They're about making money.
So the government should be like, what do you call it? Just a government body, which is totally different from a corporation, which is totally different from a man or woman, living person, right?
Well, a corporation serves the interests of its shareholders. The government's supposed to serve the interests of the people. Now, are you a shareholder of the Australian government? No.
Yep.
So whose interest is it really looking after? And just look at the decisions that governments make.
Mm-hmm.
Are they really making decisions in the interests of the people? Then, if they are, then why are the people so angry?
Yep, exactly. I even heard Scott Morrison, because there was that dismantlement of COAC, which I don't know too much about, but now I heard that he's referring to the government, not as the government anymore, but my government. He's like, my government's working on this now. He's actually changed his language there.
And it's because they're brazenly up front, because they are so cocky about the fact that they've got all the people over a barrel. That they feel that they can say it's my government, because, well, literally it is his government.
Yeah.
It's not the government of the people. And that's what the people should be up in arms about. Absolutely. Because you're being shafted on so many different levels. And people say, but the government wouldn't do that to us. Say, well, no, a proper government of the people wouldn't. But a foreign government that's trying to shaft you big time is certainly going to do that to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it all links back to the Vatican, doesn't it? And what I've noticed as well, I think, because with the Roman wreath, that's called the Lex Fori, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So whenever that's on any logo, like the United Nations, the World Health Organization, that denotes that it's controlled and it's
absolutely.
powered.
It's a dead giveaway, because they have to show up front what they're doing. So they put it into a logo, they put it into a trademark, the Lex Fori. And what do they have sitting on the top of the Lex Fori? A crown. And what crown is it? It's not the imperial crown. It's a Catholic crown. It's the St. Andrew's crown, which is owned by the Vatican.
So what is the St. Andrew's crown? What does that represent? The crown, which is the three cities, DC, London, and the Vatican, I think? Is it that?
Yeah, it does. It does to a certain sense. It's, that whole saying about all roads lead to Rome. It's so true about, when you're tracing all this stuff back. And this is where a lot of people say, when it comes to the Magna Carta, they go back and they quote the Magna Carta as being very important. But I said, but you really have to go into what happened around the Magna Carta, because there were two versions of it. The first version of the Magna Carta was a rebellion against the Vatican, against the Pope. And the Pope, as a result of that, nullified it by posting the unum sanctum, the claim of all the souls on the planet. And then there was another Magna Carta written after that. So once you get caught up in, this is a fight between the control of the Pope and the Vatican over the people.
And I guess you could take that even deeper and like, well, what's that unum thing? Like the souls of everyone on earth, that's getting into like weird black magic shit. Like that's not normal stuff.
Absolutely. And these guys are occultists. The Vatican they worship Lucifer. They don't worship Jesus, the God, and all that sort of stuff. They worship the dark side of everything. So when people think the Vatican's a good organization, well, it depends what side you're sitting on. If you're involved in all the Vatican Luciferian antics, then that's the side you're on. But if you're not on that side, then you're being manipulated. And a lot of people out there are doing all of this work to claim their rights as a living man. But if you don't rebut the unum sanctum, if you don't rebut the claim of the Vatican over your soul, then that still exists.
Okay, how do you do that?
You've got to put it in writing, and you've got to say, basically you rebut the Vatican, you rebut the unum sanctum, you rebut any decisions made by any popes, etc., and you put it into an affidavit.
And where do you send that to? The Vatican or?
Well, you can send it to the Vatican if you want, or you send it to one of their agents. The agents of the Vatican are Births, Deaths and Marriages, Victoria Police, Magistrates Court, Attorney General, etc., etc. I've got a list. If anybody wants to get a copy of this affidavit, I'm more than happy to send it to them.
Yeah. Okay. So you've done this obviously, and what happens after you send the letter?
Well, once you've sent them the affidavit, this is where a lot of people want to fight their system. And so you're crazy. It's like going into fight the US Army with a toothpick. It's crazy. What you do is you use their weapons against them. Now, under the Lex Fori rules, one of the maxims of law, legal law, is that an unchallenged affidavit stands as truth in law in their system. So you create an affidavit and you send it to all of these people and you give them 28 days to rebut it with an affidavit of their own and the evidence to prove it. They won't do it because they can't. 28 days later, what you have put in your affidavit stands as truth in law and cannot be challenged.
So how does that change your life after you do that? What happens?
Well, anytime they make a claim against you, you turn back to them and say, you had your chance to make your claim back in such and such when I sent you the affidavit. You've missed your chance. This now stands as truth in law, so you can't make a claim against me.
Oh, so so I could do this. I send it to vicroads, I send it to Fines Victoria, Vic Police, ATO, all them. They don't rebut it within 28 days. And then next time they issue me a speeding fine or a parking fine or try to get me to pay tax, all I do, I just send one letter back. You didn't rebut this. That's it.
I refer you back to my unchallenged affidavit of such and such a date. You have no claim.
Okay.
Remember, everything that they do is business. It's all contract law. Contract. When a police officer stops you on the side of the road, he's trying to engage you into a contract.
But he doesn't even
Simple
know.
as that.
Yeah. So
when they pulled me over, I say, you aware that this has been served on your chief commissioner, it's been served on the minister of the police, it's been served on vicroads, it's been served on your police prosecutions unit. Hasn't been challenged. Therefore, it stands as truth in law. You are now committing an unlawful detention. You sure you want to proceed? Because I'm not contracting with you. But you're engaging with me is you've now contracted with me.
Oh, okay.
Right? By you engaging with me, you have now contracted with me. I haven't contracted with you. You have contracted with me, and these are my terms. Because they've already been given a copy of those terms. Now, the poor copper who pulls you over, who's just trying to do his job.
Yeah, job.
Right? Oh. And his job is to implement and enforce regulations. So he's trying to impose you and coerce you into contract.
Mm-hmm.
So you say, I'm not contracting with you, but you now, by continuing to unlawfully detain me, have now agreed to contract with me on my terms. And it's $50,000 now just because you've pulled me over, plus anything that you do after that is also listed in the contract.
Mm-hmm. And that's in that affidavit that you send, rebutting the, what's it called? The unum, yeah.
The unum sanctum.
Unum sanctum. Okay. And that's like, so you put into that affidavit, if police pull me over unlawfully or try to do anything against me, this, these are the prices, these are my, fees, blah, blah, blah. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, well, in the way I do it, I have that as a schedule that's an attachment to it. Okay. The affidavit says that they have no authority.
Right.
For instance, in Victoria Police as a corporation has no authority over the land anyway.
Mm-hmm.
None. I'm not an Australian citizen, even though the Australian government gave me a passport. That was very nice of them, but that's under their legislation. I don't have to be an Australian citizen. Mm-hmm. I'm not. It's like someone gives you a title. It's very, very kind of you. I can use it or not use it.
Yeah. Because what's an actual citizen? Because you don't want to be a citizen, right? Yeah.
It's a slave. And that's why you get citizenship. Citizenship, because you need to have a ship, otherwise you drown, because you're in the sea.
Mm-hmm.
A citizen is a slave. And it goes back to the Lex Fori, is that this is how that the Roman Senate controlled the people. They said, we will give you all of these benefits provided you are a Roman citizen.
Okay.
They didn't tell them the fine tuning. Read the fine tuning. It says, by the way, citizen is slave.
Essentially. Okay. So with the police, because you don't really need a driver's license, correct?
No, not at all. Let's understand. This is good. Let's get into the nitty gritties of driving. And registrations and everything. We've been told that we have to get a driver's license to drive, and that's not true. As a living man or woman on this land, Terra Australis, you have a right to free and unrestricted travel by whatever means you want, be it bicycle, horse, car, truck, whatever it is. That is your right. Now, the powers that be went, ooh, we don't like this because, we're missing out on making money here. How can we deceive them and control them by doing this? Well, we'll instigate registering the cars. That's the first thing we're going to do, is register cars, because that was before they had driver licenses. They just registered cars. So they do things in these little incremental decrees so you don't really notice it. Yeah. So to register a car nowadays, you have to go along and give 4 pieces of information, just like when you got the birth registered, you're registering your car, you're giving the make of the car, the colour of the car, the chassis number, the engine number. Okay, I think they're the 4 things that they want. And for that, they give you a registration plate. Now, it doesn't cost you anything to register those 4 pieces of information when you're registering a birth, but suddenly now it costs you to register the car. What is it, $80 a year or something like that? Or I don't know, whatever it is now.
Nah, they want like $700 or something to register.
Oh no, that's TAC insurance. That's different. We'll get to that one.
Yeah.
All right, to register the car is only about $80.
Well, to be
Well, they
honest,
charge you.
the last one I got was, it broke it down. It was about 350 and then 350. It was approximately about $700.
Oh,
And then,
okay. Well, it's gone up. I remember the day when I registered cars, it was like $80, $90 or something.
so that must have been a while
but now
ago.
it's gone up. So, hey, mate, I'm no spring chicken.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you haven't been paying registration for a long time. Yeah. Okay.
I haven't.
Good.
I haven't. And I'll give you a rundown of what happened the last time I was having fun with them. So they'll charge you to register the car.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the next year, what happens? They charge you again to register the car. So, what do you mean you're charging me again? The car's already registered with you. How can you charge me again?
Oh, it's despicable.
Well, it's a scam. It's a total scam, and people just buy it. Because guess what happens when you don't pay your registration?
They unregister it.
You're unregistered. And I got pulled over once by a cop. He said, "Oh, you're driving an unregistered car." And I said, "No, I'm not." He said, "Yes, you are." I said, "Well, who's the car registered to?" He says, "It's registered to you." I said, "Oh, so it is registered."
Yeah, exactly.
You just told me it's registered to me, so it must be registered. And he's got this blank. He said, "Well, you haven't paid the registration fee." I said, "But that's a different issue, isn't it? Not paying for an annual fee is different to the car not being registered, because clearly it's registered because it's come up on your system as being registered."
Yeah, it's just a massive paradigm shift when you think of it that way. So
this is the lies and the shit that they put forward. Okay, your car is registered. So when they tried to tell me I was driving an unregistered vehicle, they produced a document from vicroads with all the registration details on it. Okay, so they're just proving the car is registered.
Yeah.
It's just a scam. But that's okay. They've been part of this fraud for a long period of time. So there's the first part about your registration. Now, the second part is the TAC insurance, the traffic insurance. That is compulsory. You have to have this insurance. No, I don't. Because if I'm driving and I hit someone and I hurt them or cause damage, that's already covered under the lawful system. It's already covered under common law. Somebody can sue me for damage. They can sue me for physical damage or whatever. That's already covered under common law damage. So why do we have this compulsory payment of TAC insurance money? Well, how do you get TAC compensation? You got to go to a court. Okay. You got to go through a court. And who has to represent you?
A lawyer.
A lawyer. And where does most of the money go when you win?
Probably to the lawyer.
To the lawyer. So the whole traffic accident compensation system is a scam created by lawyers for lawyers, because under common law, the system of compensation already exists, but lawyers get nothing.
Okay, with that though, so I crash into you, right? And I haven't paid registration, haven't got the TAC, and then I've hurt you and you're like, okay, I want to sue you. And then you take me to court, you find I was negligent driving, and then you sue me for, $5,000. Now, don't I have to pay that $5,000 out of my own pocket?
Yep.
But if I did have the TAC insurance or cover, and I crash into you, I hurt you, you take me to court, and then you sue me for $5,000, doesn't that come out of like the TAC fund? So then it's nothing out of my pocket except for the $350 I paid for the registration?
Yep. And what if you drive for 20 years and you never hurt anyone? See, that any insurance, remember, these are gamblers. If one person takes insurance and claims against it, the insurance company goes under. All right, so the whole insurance scam is based on a lot of people buying into it. They're making money. They're going to have to give some of it out, but they know they're making a lot in the process. So if they can convince the whole driving population that they have to pay this insurance money, They've already done the figures. They know how many accidents happen a year. They know how much compensation is going to go out. And they know that at the end of the day, they're going to keep 90% of the money.
Because then it just asks the question, if you've got the registration, you've got the TAC, and then you have to get your own insurance on top of that as well. Like, isn't that meant to be the insurance that covers you for crashing into people and doing that kind of stuff?
Gee, you'd think so?
Yeah, but it also raises a question because, like, insurance can be a good thing because accidents do happen sometimes and you might crash your car or whatever. But if you don't have the registration, if you haven't paid registration for your car, then the insurance won't cover you. Is that correct?
Oh, there are some insurance companies that will.
Okay.
Because what you're doing is you're insuring an asset. It depends on the terms of what your insurance policy is.
Okay.
But shouldn't insurance be voluntary?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it should be voluntary. If you want to insure something, like, duh,
So why is,
it should be, yeah.
So why is the traffic accident compensation insurance not voluntary?
Oh, yeah. I mean, anything that is not voluntary is rape. It's forced consent, you know. Well, forced. And when it's forceful, it's rape. It's like, I don't get how some people don't understand. When you try and make someone do something they don't want to do, whether it's sex, paying a fine, or like having to get insurance, when it is not voluntary, it is rape. Like, that is not a good thing. Like, sure,
that's right.
You know, if you want to do it, cool, go do it. If you want to vaccinate yourself, go do it. But there's got to be consent, people. You've got to have consent.
And this is how they work. They work into belligerent people into consenting without even thinking that they're consenting, the tacit acquiescence, in that if you don't not consent in writing or verbally, it is taken that you have consented. When I went in the past there to re-register or register a car that I'd bought, and I knew what was going to happen, so I was having a bit of fun. I went along there and I said, okay, I want to register this car. And I changed all the details on the form and crossed out all of the surname, didn't write in capital letters, basically adjusted their whole form to reflect that I was a living man, the owner of this car, who was going to register it. And they put it all through. They handed me back the form, you know, the receipt part. And I said, oh, there's a mistake here. You've transferred it into the name of a capital lettered corporation. And she said, what do you mean? I said, here, look, see the name here? I said, that's not me. That's a estate trust. And you've just transferred it into an estate trust. And she said, well, the system automatically does that. I said, yes, I know it does that. It's a fraud. And I'm telling you now that I want the car registered to me, the living being. Now, we had some exchanges in writing, because I love getting stuff in writing from them, because that's what you need as proof. Mind you, I did record one of my times when I was in there with them. But the vicroads person put in writing, we do not recognize you as a corporation or an individual. We can only register cars to corporations and individuals.
So they didn't recognize you as an individual. So obviously the word individual means not what people think it is.
No, individual is a single person. And a person is a legal fiction.
Yeah.
So they are not even permitted to register a car to a living man or woman. So you as a living man or woman are not required to register your car with them, because they can't even do it if they wanted to. So therefore, what they do is they transfer the ownership of your car into the fictitious name. This is why they can seize your vehicle, impound your vehicle, because it's under the name of the fictitious entity which they claim ownership of through your birth certificate. when you rebut all of this and you claim the ownership of the fictitious name that they created, you short circuit their whole scam.
So is there a way to get rid of the birth certificate, or you just do that with that rebuttal to the unum sanctum?
Well, that the unum sanctum rebuttal is about freeing your soul from their claim of ownership.
Mm-hmm.
The birth certificate that they have fraudulently created, it's a fraud, doesn't have your parent's signature on it, whereas the birth registration paper might. The birth certificate has no signatures from either of your parents on it. They didn't authorize it, but it's been created. Now, there's a trust fund that goes along with this, and it's worth a lot of money. And whenever they charge you for a speeding fine, they charge you, the person, but they also take the money out of this trust fund. Double dipping.
Yeah, I've heard about this, but I don't know enough about it. Mm.
So what you do is you say, well, hang on a minute. If this trust fund that's been created, and I'm supposedly the beneficiary of this trust fund, right? But under their system, they have said that I am lost at sea. I'm dead. Okay, so I can't ever claim on this trust fund. They can just trade it around and make money out of it till the cows come home, because I'm a dead entity. I don't exist. But there's a clause in this, in the Citylink v. Trust, that says if I return from the sea alive, I can claim on it, because they have to do it properly, but they don't want anybody to find out about it. So when you go and you register yourself as a living man or woman with a common law court international, you have a new birth certificate, which is a birth certificate of a living man or woman.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's where you start to get into the nitty-gritties of the law. If you look up in their legal system what a birth is, the definition says includes stillbirth.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think that means? Birth includes stillbirth.
Well, because a corporation is a dead entity. Different from a birth record, a live birth record.
If we're talking about you as a person, a living man or woman getting born, what do you think birth includes stillbirth means?
Like just a baby that comes out that's dead. Is that what you mean? That's not alive.
So most people would think that definition of birth, including stillbirth, means all living births and all non-living births, all the babies that are born dead.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The reality of it is that when you talk about the word includes, when you have includes in a line, it only includes what is after the line, not anything else. So it excludes everything else. So birth includes stillbirth means that birth only includes dead births.
Oh, okay.
Okay, this is how their tricky little system works.
Yeah.
So you are considered to be dead, and you're considered to be a child, because on your birth certificate, right in the top left-hand side, the first thing it says is child, number 1, and then it lists you. Then it will have father, mother, etc. In the court, when you go into a court, you are a child because your birth certificate denounces you as a child. Therefore, you have no capacity to make any decisions. So you can stand up in front of a court and say, I'm the living man, I'm 70 years old, I'm this, that, the other. The court says, no, you're not. You're just a child. You got no say here.
Mm-hmm.
And not only are you just a child, but you're a dead child.
Mm-hmm.
But all these little tricks.
Say you go to court though and you know all this and you're like, yeah, I don't care, you've got this stupid system of dead birth, like I know all that, and that's not me. I know what I am. Boom, everything you've ever done invalid, like because I know about it. What happens then?
Well, you are on board their ship.
Mm-hmm.
The captain can make his own rules. He does not even acknowledge living beings because he can't. He's only there to deal with trade. So if you stand on the board and you say, I'm a living man and I'm going to do this, he can't deal with you. Can't deal with you. You're going in and you're challenging his system. That's not the way to do it.
Okay.
You go in because the matter before the court is an issue of trade. Therefore, it's all contract law. That's all it is. It's contract law. And you're going in and you're bringing up, I'm a living person and the Constitution and this and all that. It's not authorised to deal with that. Magistrate's only authorised to deal with a contract.
Okay.
So you've been up for a speeding fine.
Yep.
Okay. You go in, you stand there, the magistrate says, are you James Bartoli? What do you say?
No.
Yeah, you've just gone into argument with the judge, so he's going to do what he wants because you're not the person that's supposed to be here. Leave the court.
Oh, okay.
It's got nothing to do with you.
Then wouldn't you just leave the court then?
If you don't leave the court, he'll ask you to be removed.
Yeah, and then wouldn't it be over? Like if I'm just like, no.
No.
And then you just...
Because there's no one there representing the accused.
Mm-hmm.
And he knows that the accused is a dead person anyway. And the dead person can't speak. So he'll just make a ruling. And that's what they do. So how do you deal with it?
Fucking boom. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, you must use their system against them. You go in, you say, thank you very much, Your Honour, for inviting me here to be today. Just to make my standing clear with the court, I am the principal in this matter, and this person to my left is purporting to be the agent in this matter. And under full disclosure, I demand that this person provide a copy of the contract on which he makes the claim. And if he can't provide the contract, then the matter should be dismissed.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Because
Have you done this?
Contract law.
Have you personally done that in court?
Not that one. I have more fun with it. I like to expose it more. So I take them up to the next level of court to expose the fraud.
Okay. And
I have in the past though. I've sent copies of bills for driving an unregistered vehicle. I sent that to the registrar and said, "You're the trustee of this account. Pay the account."
Mm-hmm. And what happened?
I don't know. Never heard back, so I'm guessing it was paid.
Oh, rightio. Okay. Actually, can you tell us about a time you went to court and how it went? Like, how did it go? Were you successful, or you failed at first and then you had to learn and then go back again and then you made another mistake and you learned? How have you gone with that?
Yeah, look, I've made a few mistakes along the way. Early on, I did, and one of the first mistakes I made was standing up saying, "I'm not the corporate entity. I'm a living man."
Okay, yeah, and then what happened? Yeah.
Well, he said, "It's got nothing to do with you. Then get out."
Yeah,
because you can't deal with living court. They don't tell you all the reasons. You can start to challenge them, say, where's your oath of allegiance and who are you, and identify yourself and do all of that. But you're going into disrepute. And when you're going to disrepute, they don't have to deal with you. I learned along the way is don't fight their system. You can win. I went into the court and the judge said, are you Alex, XYZ? I said, who do you mean by that? He said, well, the person does. I said, well, it's not me. It's not for me to identify myself. It's for the police prosecutor to identify who I am. Now, of course, the police prosecutor didn't know me from a bar of soap. He'd never seen who I was. So I'm standing there and I'm saying, it's not for me to identify who I am. He's the person making the claim. Make him prove who I am.
Love it. Yeah.
I was getting all frustrated, and magistrate's going, "Are you Alex such and such?" I said, "Well, I've just told you, Your Honour, it's not for me to make that identification. He's the one making the claim. Let him make it. For the last time, are you such and such?" I said, "Well, Your Honour, I will tell you this. I am not the accused as written."
Okay.
Now, the stupid police prosecutor, trying to be clever, said, "Your Honour, since he's not the accused, I move that we go ex parte."
What's that?
That the accused is not present.
Okay.
And the magistrate went, "Well, yes, Sergeant such and such, yes, we will go ex parte." And I went, "Oh, thank you very much." Packed up my things and walked out. Because by their words and actions, they had just agreed that I was not the accused.
Ah, okay.
So any fine that they impose can't come back to me. Because I was present in court, said I wasn't the accused. They didn't challenge that. In fact, they acknowledged I wasn't the accused and went ahead.
Okay. And so did they try and send you a fine or try and, reprimand you in any way after you did that and then walked out of the court?
No, they made all of their decisions against the fictitious name.
Okay.
And if they ever wanted to challenge that, they would have been in big trouble.
Big trouble with who, though?
Well, with their whole system, because they'd committed fraud. So what they do is they send the bill off to the fictitious name account and the money just gets taken out of the fictitious name account.
Ah, okay. So that's what they do, right. So with that trust, so they create the birth certificate, which is basically, that's the registration of you as a corporation. And what is it? The state, the registrar general of each state, say, and we're just talking about Australia, is the trustee. We're meant to be the beneficiary, but we're not the beneficiary. We're actually the trust. And then,
no, you're always the beneficiary, but they convince you into acting as the trustee, and the trustee always pays.
Okay.
Okay, so they convince you that you're the trustee because you don't know any different. But when you know your position, you're the principal in the matter, you're the trustee, you're not the trustee, you're the beneficiary, you're also a live entity, and as the principal, you tell the trustee what to do.
So what's it mean to be a principal? What's that mean exactly?
It means you are the person who is controlling the whole issue.
Okay. So like the owner or the boss of my corporate name.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
And especially if you have claimed the ownership of that fictitious name through the common law court, which you're entitled to do, because their claim of the ownership is fraudulent and yours is legitimate, you are the owner of that name. You're the owner of the trust and the beneficiary of the trust. And the registrar general is the trustee. And the trustee's responsibility is to pay all of the accounts out of that trust account. So you send a letter to the registrar general saying, here's a bill from Victoria Police for $800 for such and such. Please pay this account. Send me a copy of all the transaction details, which will include all of the account details for that trustee account, which they try to keep hidden. And if you don't do that, you have committed misfeasance of public office and the trust is broken. You have broken the trust. Therefore, you must surrender all the details to me anyway.
Mm-hmm.
This is how you use their system against them. They are now personally accountable.
But even if you did do that and they didn't reply, like, they wouldn't care though, would they?
Well, if they're smart, they'll just pay the bill.
Yeah, okay.
If they're not smart, they're up for misfeasance of public office and you can sue them.
Hmm. Oh, that's
Now, recently we had a guy who sent one of these in personally to the trustee, to the registrar, and he said within 2 hours they had a crew of lawyers crawling over the document trying to work out what they were going to do with it.
Okay. Right. Yeah, because I have heard that from a friend as well, saying that he sends if you get any fines, parking fines, speeding fines, just forward it to the Registrar General and they'll just pay it out of that trust, which they're trading, which I want to get a bit more detail about how they do that, which they're trading, which apparently has millions of dollars in this trust, and they just deduct that amount from there. Okay.
Yeah, because they stand to lose more than that if the fraud's exposed. It's much easier for them to pay a couple of $100 every month or so for something than it is to have the whole fraud exposed for everyone.
So why don't we just go and expose the fraud, like according to their terms, and just expose it? Like why haven't you done that? Why hasn't anyone else done that yet?
Oh, we've been doing it. It's a process,
Yeah.
It's a process of doing it. You don't want to completely collapse society, because absolute anarchy would rule unless there's something else in place first. This is why the move to have common law courts established is really important, because there must be a viable alternative. Otherwise, we go into a period of complete anarchy. And it's not the good people that are going to cause the problems. It's always going to be the unethical people that will cause the problem. So you've got to have something to make it accountable.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean we can't protect ourselves in the meantime, individually. If we all protect ourselves individually from this scam, their system will break down by itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there still needs to be some, like, the real law. Because with common law, right, it's very simple from what I understand or comprehend of it, is basically don't do things to other people you don't want done to you. That's practically it. Don't kill, rape, steal, damage property, etc.
Be an honourable, contributing member of society. That's basically what common law is. Don't hurt people, don't steal from them. Honour your words, deeds, contracts, and keep the peace. It's pretty much that simple. So when we get to the whole registration scam, people consent to it. That's why they're fined. And somebody said to me the other day, "Oh, can you help me with this speeding fine?" And I said, "Well, is your car registered?" They said, "Yes." I said, "You got a driver's license?" "Yes." "Did you show them the driver's license?" "Yes." I said, "Well, you just consented to all of the legislation that they're throwing against you. Unless you can prove you're not speeding, your only hope is to now prove the fraud. That you've been fraudulently created a birth certificate, that you've fraudulently, the car has been registered in the name of a non-living entity and not you as a living being, that your driver's license is fraudulent. You now have to go on the attack and you have to prove that they have created a fraud, which is not hard to do, but you've got to do it. You've got to take a different tack. So if you're driving a car, and let's talk about what driving is. This is where it's another important thing. A driver license. A driver is somebody who is employed by a corporation for the business of commerce, whether it's transferring goods from one place to another or people via a fare, like a taxi. So a driver is employed by a corporation. It's all in fiction. It's all fiction. A driver is fiction. Corporation is fiction. This is how they control you. So if you have a driver license, you are an employee of a corporation and you are carrying on trade. And your car is registered to that fictitious entity. So you don't own it. You don't control it. So you're in the system. So how do you get out of the system? Well, you rescind the registration and you inform them to remove all of the details of that vehicle from their register, and you register it with a common law court. or you can register it with your own corporation.
Okay.
Then you don't ever show a driver license. You don't need one.
Mm-hmm.
If you're carrying your kids to the park and they pull you over, you're not driving, you are traveling.
Mm-hmm.
You are traveling, and it is your right to travel. You cannot turn a right into a privilege. You also can't license something that is unlawful.
Mm.
You can't say that killing somebody is fine, but if I give you a license to kill, that's okay.
Mm.
A license is, I made some notes here. A license gives a person or an organisation permission to engage in something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they're giving you permission to do something which you already have a lawful right to do.
So, but what do you do? Because the cops that are pulling you over are going to have absolutely no idea about reality. So they're going to be thinking they're trying to do the right thing. What do you do when you say, I don't have a license, I don't need it, I'm not driving, I'm traveling, this isn't a vehicle, this is an automobile, blah, blah, blah. Like, and obviously you can explain it to them, but they still, if they've joined into the police force, they're probably not going to understand that, because if they had a high enough IQ, they'd be doing something else.
What you can do is you can preface it all by sending a copy of all of this to your state, local police prosecutions, chief commissioner, and you give them an outline saying, here's the circumstances. I'm in a silver Merc. It has no registration plates. This is the engine number of it. This is my car. It's owned by me, the living man. If any of your officers, agents, etc., unlawfully detain me or engage with me for the purpose of trying to coerce commerce, it will immediately engage a fee of $50,000.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the rest of the schedule. So you tell them up front, and you send a copy off to your local police, take it, drop it in, so they've all got awareness of it. You're giving them notice, advance notice. Then you can put up on the back of your car something like non-alien, non-citizen, national of Terra Australis, unauthorised engagement fee begins at $50,000 on the back of the car. Now, if they pull you over, first thing you say is, where is the emergency and how can I help you?
Mm-hmm.
Because as far as you know, because they've got their lights and sirens on, they want to pass you. So you pull over to let them pass, but they pull in behind you. So what's the emergency? There is no emergency. Where's your license? So, well, if there's no emergency, it means that you have deceitfully pulled me over for the purpose of trying to coerce me into business with you. I decline to do business with you. You are now, if you do not allow me to pass, the engagement fee of $50,000 begins, plus the rest of the schedule begins. What do you want to do? Have I committed a crime? No. Then I'm free to go. No. Am I under arrest? No. Then I'm free to go. Because if I'm not free to go, you are now unlawfully detaining me, and that will cost, on top of the $50,000, you personally are also going to have to pay $100 a minute, whatever you've got on your schedule, $100 a minute.
Ah, okay, yeah.
They're trying to coerce you into a business transaction. If you show them your driver's license, what's one of the first things they say about your rights? You have a right to remain silent. Anything you say or do may be held against you. Well, if you hand them a driver's license, you surrendered your rights. You now incriminated yourself into being a non-living entity, and you're at their mercy. You're not obliged to show them a driver license. You haven't committed a crime. You're not even obliged to identify yourself.
Hmm. And what if they try and say, if you're like, what's the emergency? And they're like, oh, you were speeding. Like, well, I'd probably just say, well, no, I wasn't. What's the emergency? Back. But what would you say?
I
And
stick to my
yeah.
script. So am I
Right.
under arrest?
Oh.
No, but I'm free to go.
Hmm.
See, they're just making an allegation. If it says 60 zone and you're doing 65, the 60 legislation is a guideline. You don't have to abide by legislation. Now, of course, if you drive like an idiot, you come under common law anyway.
Okay. Yeah, if you're going like 120 through a 40-kilometer school zone, yeah, okay.
Well, that's dangerous. That's dangerous. So they are entitled to pull you over and say, listen, mate, that's really dangerous driving. But that's all they can do. That's all they're authorized to do, is to prevent a crime, not to prosecute.
Like, I think what should really happen if that happened, if there was a police officer sitting there and someone's whizzed through a school zone at 120 Ks, boom, they chase them down, they pull them over, they give them a harsh warning and say, okay, I think you need to go to a rehabilitation driving school or something like that. You need re-education on how to be a safe driver. Like, that is actually going to help that person who's driving the car be a safer and better driver. How is just dishing out, like, you have to pay money. Like, a great analogy is if you've got kids and you're bringing up kids and every time they do something naughty or wrong, you're like, oh, that's okay. You've done something wrong. You just got to pay me $300 and then it's all good. It's like, whoa, no. You don't do that with your kids. You're going to teach them you don't bite your sister like this because it hurts. I'll bite you and see how you like it. And you teach and educate them. Like, that's what needs to happen with society when people are adults. Like, how does just paying money, how does that solve anything? Absolutely.
Well, you've hit it on the head, is that it's proven that fining people for speeding doesn't stop them speeding. Mm-hmm. That these deterrents, people don't do it. So why do they stick up speed cameras? Well, it's revenue raising. We all know that it's revenue raising. It's just that people just bend over and take it rather than challenge it. And here's one I just went the other day, is that on the infringement notice, it says alleged speed. See, they're alleging a speed. Why are they alleging a speed? Well, they've got a speed camera image. Okay. But what does the image show? Yeah, this is a good one.
Oh, I got this one.
Yeah, we'll bring it. Well, we can talk about that.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So the image that they show, all that the image can show is that the car was at a particular place at a particular time. It doesn't designate what speed it was. That would have to be video. It would have to be in a marked species. So the photo cannot show the speed. It can only show where it was at a particular moment. Mm-hmm. So this is a good one. We've all had our little run-ins.
This is a letter. I wrote a letter. I had a template. I personally got it for Aussie speeding fines, and I used that, and then I added my little piece on the end, which said any return correspondence which does not answer these questions is going to be considered as tacit consent into this agreement, right? And then a month later, or however long, they've posted me back this, and my first instinct was like, okay, this is just a trap. Like, they know they've lost, but they're just testing me. They're like, okay, has this guy just sent a template and he's got no idea what he's doing? Or let's test him. Let's see what happens when we send him this. What is he going to do? And at this point, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to even bother replying because they've already agreed with the first letter I sent. But I want to get your opinion on this as well, and then go over, because I sent this letter to Alex, and then he's circled bits and pieces with red and wrote over it. So yeah, jump into it.
Yeah, so this is great, because this is how we start to help people to understand the letters that they're being sent. So at the top of here, you've got Fines Victoria. Okay, Now, this is an interesting one, Fines Victoria. And we'll get into who Fines Victoria is in a minute. But if this is the corporation, then it should have the ABN number under it. Okay, the ABN should be at the top of the document, and it's not anywhere on this document. So this is not a legal document, invoice, etc., that you have to take any notice of, right? Because it's got no ABN, could be from anyone. Next thing we've got there is the correspondence is from one non-living entity to another non-living entity, because we've circled here your name in capital letters. Okay, that's not you, that's the trust account. So this is a document, and if we look down the bottom, it says correspondence officer, Fines Victoria, another non-living entity. It's not signed by a living man or woman. So this is a document that's been created by a non-living entity from one non-living entity to another non-living entity, because that's their realm. Okay. Now, I've got here clearly a non-living corporation. Last time I checked, corporations can't read or write.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Where's the living person here? There's got to be a living person. My trust account can't read or write. If it said in lowercase letters to James Pepper Bartolo, principal of the estate, capital lettered, then someone could read it. But this is expecting a non-living entity to read something, which can't happen. Yes. Now, if we go down the bottom here, the bit that we've circled, please note, we will only be able to action your letter if this infringement notice is in your name and you are an authorised third party of the fine holder. Now, how interesting is that? So they can't action this because the infringement notice is not in your name. It's in the name of the non-living entity. And you've written to them as the living entity.
So actually what I did, because my car is registered in a company, and I wrote that first letter back to them under the company, and I was like, oh, I'm just going to see how this goes and try that. And then they've sent this letter to my personal corporation.
Yep.
And then I think they're trying to say, please note, we will only be able to action this letter of this infringement notice if you transfer it to your name and it's not in the company.
That's exactly right. They're saying we can only deal with non-living entities. So we need to know that you are the authority, you're claiming authority of this non-living entity.
And it's cool because it's like, yes, we will only be able to action this letter if the notice is in your name or you're an authorized third party. Okay, well, I'm not going to put the notice in my name, and I'm not going to vote myself to be a third party. Boom. You know, then they can't.
There you go. That should be the end of it.
Yeah.
That should be the end of it then. And they'll say to you, you know, third and final notice. And you go, oh, good, I don't have to be hassled anymore. Because the first two notices you haven't been able to act on.
Yes.
Otherwise you would have acted. You're sending a third and final notice, which means you really don't have the authority that you claim you do.
Yes, exactly. It won't be.
So, but let's go back. Look at Fines Victoria. I sent you a copy of the PDF of Fines Victoria.
The ABN and stuff, like this one?
Now, here we go. Fines Victoria was registered on the 29th of April this year. To a mate of mine, Wayne, in Willow Grove.
Oh.
He owns Fines Victoria. Because he got a fine from Fines Victoria and he went and looked up to see if the company was actually even registered. And it's not. Not even registered. Somebody'd overlooked it. So all of these people who have been paying fines to Fines Victoria did not exist until the 29th of April this year, and it's owned by a mate of mine. So if you've got a fine from Fines Victoria after the 29th of April, or before that, it's fraudulent anyway. But if you've got a fine after that, then this government entity is fraudulently trying to take money under my mate's company name.
Wow. And I see, because he did Fines Vic and he also did Fines Victoria. Both of them.
Yep.
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 Wowzers. Because I was looking at that before Alex mentioned it, and I was like, something's going on. I was going to get some more detail. Right.
Somebody in the government corporation or whatever had forgotten to register the company. And they've been making people pay a bank account that goes where? That's owned by who? The company doesn't even exist until the 29th of April this year, when my mate set it up.
Oh, wow.
So if you've got a fine from Fines Victoria, demand to see the proof that they have ownership of the company. Otherwise, they are committing a fraud.
Mm. Yes.
Now, if you look at your driver's license, you pull it out and have a look at it. If you've got it there, you will see in your driver's license that you have your name in capital letters. Well, that's not your name. That's the fictitious entity. Yeah, this is another good one we'll have a look at. But your driver's license has the fictitious name. They've taken a photo of you, the living man or woman, and they've put the two of them into the same instrument, i.e. the driver license, and they've included with that a copy of your signature. Very important to know that. Not your signature, a copy of your signature. Now, if anybody else in the world did that, that would be fraud. They have attached a different name to your photo with a copy of your signature. They've not got you to sign it personally. This is part of the fraud. They don't give it to you on the day. They send it out in the mail to you. And it says, if not claimed, return to. Well, if you open it, you have claimed it. You have ratified their fraud. But you've only discovered the fraud now, that it was a fraud. A driver license is a fraudulent document. They asked me to return mine to them. And I said, no, thank you. I am keeping it as evidence of fraud.
Oh, yes. Okay.
I sent them a photocopy of it back. This is the fraudulent document that you issued to me. I am keeping the original for a case of fraud that I am mounting against vicroads. So I've given them a heads up. Get ready, guys. You're going to get hit with fraud.
Fantastic. That's what needs to happen. That's brilliant. Good. I'll bring up that defect notice as well.
Yeah, so let's put a few, if we've got a defect notice, and maybe we'll go through them so people can start to see this. So at the top there, we've got, that's clearly a non-living corporation, and corporations cannot read or write. It's non-living. Then we've got here in capital letters, notice of suspension of registration. Now that is in capital letters. That's what's called dog Latin. So even though you can read it as English, it is not English. At the top, we've got vicroads, no ABN number at the top. I think they slip it in at the bottom somewhere, but it's got to be at the top of the document. Right? It's just, you can see it's tucked down there very, very smallly. They're a corporation, but they're not putting it up the top where it's meant to be. Now, if you've got capital letters in a document, dog Latin, that makes the instrument commercial, it makes it criminal, and it makes it counterfeit. So you do not have to take anything to do with this letter because it is not legal. It's not lawful. It's criminal. Then it says, I'm writing, dear Sir, Madam, I'm writing to you. Well, who is you? Sir, Madam? Sir, Madam is also a non-living entity. You is also a plural. So that hence Sir, Madam. So it must be writing to both of them. So you see, you is used consistently through this. And who is it at the bottom? Director, customer services. It's not from a living person. Sorry, not from a living being. You have a right to know who your accuser is. Anything that you get from the police that is signed but has no name, like commissioning officer, or I've got one somewhere else there, that if it doesn't have the name of the person, you have a right to demand who that is. They must tell you who they are.
How is the word you? How can that be used plurally, in a plural sense?
You people.
Okay.
If I'm pointing to a group of people, hey, you over there.
Right.
You doesn't define anyone.
Mm.
I'm not you. Are you you?
If I was Chinese,
I thought you were James.
Yeah. Okay. So how would they, if they were doing this correctly, would they be like, okay, I'm writing to James of the family People Bartolo to show you that your records, blah blah blah. Is that how they would do it correctly?
Or you would also potentially go, I'm writing to you, comma, James of the family Bartolo, comma, as our, so you're defining who you is. You're not defining who you is here. This could be to anyone.
Yes, true. Okay, I got it now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, I sent you through an actual invoice notice or something that we could bring up and look at. So,
you sent me these templates. Ah, yes. Okay, here we go. Template 1.
Yeah, that's a good one. So this is from Victoria Police. So this is what most people will get in the mail if they've been picked up by a speed camera or something like that. Okay. So people need to understand how to deal with something like this by knowing what's really there. So at the top of it, we've got, in the left-hand corner, we've got the Lex Fori. Yep, that's the Lex Fori in the background with the crown on top, with the inverted pentagram. These are all images of the Vatican.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they're telling you straight away who they are. So the first thing you do is, I have no claim. I don't, what's the word I'm using? There's no claim of this organization over me. I do not come under the crown. I do not come under Lex Fori. I do not come under the Vatican. So I'm denouncing that straight away.
Ah, so you're not under their jurisdiction. I do not.
I'm not under your jurisdiction. Yeah. I'm not under you. Then we've got under that Victoria Police in capital letters. Now, we don't know whether that is Dog Latin or whether it's the name of a corporation. Because there's no ABN there, this document's got no ABN on it whatsoever, it can only be Dog Latin. So it's criminal. So this whole instrument's criminal, and we confirm that by at the top where we might read in English, infringement notice. But that's not English, that's Dog Latin. So is to the operator, offence detected by a road safety camera. Now, you could have a field day with this. The operator is not you. This is if we read this as English. There is no offence. An offence is not an offence until it's been proven in a court of law.
Mm.
Until then, it is just an allegation.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so you straight away, you say, there is no offence being proven. All this is an allegation of an offence detected by a road safety camera. This wasn't even detected by a living being. There is no living witness to this. Where's the living witness?
Yeah.
Top right-hand corner, it's got your obligation number. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Victoria Police person, I have no obligation to you. I have no obligation. I have not contracted with you. We've got fines, Victoria, again, which we've already talked about. We've got who is you. Here's the name, Mary Jane Smith. Again, this is Dog Latin. This is the trustee account.
Waffle too.
And on the right-hand side, I've got these red boxes around stuff.
Ah,
anything,
yes. Okay.
Anything that is in a box is separated from the rest of the instrument, has nothing to do with it. So you are here, infringement notice, infringement penalty, due to, all of that stuff is in a box of some sort, has nothing to do with the rest of it. So you can ignore it.
Mm-hmm. With why do they do that? Why do they need to put these two things in a separate box, separate from the rest of this document? Why?
Well, because it's deceitful, because they're trying to make you think it's important, but they actually know there is no infringement until it's actually been proven.
Mm.
So it's got nothing to do with the rest of the document, but you're stupid enough to believe that it does. So you'll pay it, even though it's all of this dog Latin's going on there in those boxes. Penalty reminder notice. Now, if you move further down, James, when we go into left-hand side again, offence details. Remember, there is no offence yet. It's not been proven. And it's a lack of due process to penalise anyone before they have had a proper time to defend it. But because the person that's being accused is a non-living entity and that person can't speak, they're just bulldozing ahead. So you've got all of that dog Latin. Now, down the middle in the second there, it's got Road Rule 20 of the Road Safety Rule. Now, statutory legislation requires consent. If you are interstate, you may even find that this is written in italics. And sometimes you'll find italics at the top of the page when they're citing the legislation. Italics is cursive. They are cursing you.
Yes.
So you don't have to acknowledge acceptance of that. You say, I denounce the curse.
Love it, yes.
Okay,
and
so
it's so simple, all this stuff. That's right there.
It is simple once somebody's pointed it out to you. You will often be asked to name a driver who was in charge. My partner recently got a speeding fine in her corporation car. And she said, oh, what am I going to do with this? I said, well, was I the one who was traveling in the car at that time? And she said, oh, I can't remember. I said, no, I think I remember I was the one who was traveling in your car. So give it to me. So she gave it to me and I crossed it out, all of the references to surname, etc. And I put that I, the living being, was traveling in that car at that time. So she has now fulfilled her requirement to say who was in charge of it at that time. And it's now come to me. And I deal with it in terms of saying, as a living man, I was authorized. So never fill out the thing of who was driving it, because you know what? You weren't there at the moment, so you don't know who was driving. You could not swear under oath who was driving the vehicle at that car at that time. All you can give is hearsay evidence. So they are asking you to commit perjury when they want you to nominate who the driver was.
Oh, okay. You're saying if someone else actually was driving your car,
yep,
and they've sent it to the speeding fine to me, I can't actually nominate. That's what you mean. Okay.
Not unless you were sitting in the passenger seat.
Right. Okay.
Because if you say, well, my wife was driving it, you don't actually know that to be true because you weren't there.
Mm-mm.
You might think she was because she left the house with it the morning. But if you were giving to actual evidence, you say, well, how do you know that she was exactly the one who was driving at that time? Oh, well, she told me she was. Sorry, Your Honour, that's not admissible as evidence. That's hearsay.
Okay. So why did she nominate it into your name? Why didn't you just leave it in your partner's name and then do, what you were going to do like that? Why put it into your name?
Because I like to have fun.
Ah, okay.
I like to have fun.
Yeah. You love it. It's good.
It's all a game, mate. It's all a game. I don't take it seriously. It's a bit of fun.
Yeah.
Now, I think we had another one coming up there from...
Okay, quick question though with this. Is it the Rothschild's cross that's in the middle?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Been wondering about
So
that.
there's all these giveaway telltale clues that
With the,
tell you, look,
with the charity organization, the Red Cross, that's just the Rothschilds, another organization, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
all of these charities, if you go into who really the money goes to, you'll find that most of it goes back to the Vatican.
Oh. Yes, they're just the mafia, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. The mafia is a branch of the Vatican.
Yeah. Well, they're above the mafia. Like,
Yeah. So look, this is the same thing. You're not obliged to do anything that's in boxes. Anything in boxes. You know, it gives you a giveaway. If we go down to B, list the details of the person or corporation who was in possession of the vehicle. Sorry, there was no person or corporation in control of the vehicle. It was being operated by a living man.
Yeah, so a person is just literally another word for corporation, but they've listed there because people will think it means a living man or woman.
That's right. That's right. And see here, you've got surname stroke corporation name. Doesn't say or living person name. See, surname is an overname, is a name that they put over you to bring you into their system. So there's nothing here. You've got an alternative. You're either a first name or a corporation. It's all corporation. Person, driver license.
Like, because I'm assuming surname, has more etymology to it than, surface level. Do you know much more about, the surname?
Yeah. The surname is what happened when people didn't they were living beings. So a way to bring a living being into the system was to impose a name on top, i.e. a surname, to bring you into the land of the dead so that they could action you.
Because a sir is just a title, like a Mr. or Mrs.
Yeah, it's a put on. It's a put on name. It's a name we're putting over the top. So because, for instance, when you were born, your parents named you James Robert or James whatever, or just plain James or whatever, and you just happened to be of the family Bartolo. Okay. But they didn't, when they call you, they didn't say, James Bartolo, come to dinner.
Yeah.
You were never given the family name. Part of the fraud when they create a birth certificate is to attach the surname to you. That's what they did in the old paperwork. They didn't attach the family name. They attached a surname which happened to be a capitalized version of your family name.
Okay. So really you've got a first name and a family name, not a first name and a surname.
Your given names might be James Robert. I don't know if you've got a middle name, whatever, but they were the names that were given to you by your parents. Okay. The family name Bartolo just happened to be the name of the family. And they have deceived everybody into adding the surname. This is how they control you through part of this.
How? Because my name's I got a hyphenated name.
Yep.
So with that, because is that like two family names then?
Well, it just means that you were born of two separate families. That shows your lineage.
Okay.
Okay, but in terms of common law, you're just known as James.
Yeah.
And in fact, that may not even be the name of your soul. Because your soul came here without a name, but it might be known as something.
Yeah.
But your living child form was given a name by your parents.
Yeah.
So I think there's one more document there that we might bring up, which is, I think the Terence one. Is it? I can't remember.
This is the third one.
Oh, that's all. Yeah. And that sort of covers all the same things and all the same. Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to mention. Look at this really interesting thing under penalty reminder notice, where it says, or the case of a child, Schedule 3 of the Children, Youth and Families Act. So if you don't pay the amount, okay, further enforcement action will be taken. That's interesting because here they specifically say you're a child.
Oh.
So the way they're going to deal with you is as a child.
So, okay, if you're not paid the amount under the fines, but doesn't that mean like, or if it is a child, wait, but you won't have a child driving a car.
Hang on, go back to your birth certificate. What are you?
Yeah, I get it on the birth certificate. You're classified as a child. Actually, explain that part again for me.
Yeah. Because in your birth certificate, you are a child. Anytime you present yourself in their system, you can't determine things for yourself. You're not competent. Okay, so they're going to deal with you as you are a child. Okay, this is just one of the little things. When you start to dig around, you find all these little giveaways that says they're going to deal with you as a child.
Okay, actually with this, because, like it's easy to get through this part, but with you, have they ever tried to go to this part where they get like the sheriff to come and wheel clamp your car and steal your car and do all that kind of stuff?
Well, I had the police turn up at my door the day after they picked me up for driving without a license, or with a license that had been disqualified in a car that wasn't registered, and they were going to impound my vehicle.
Right.
And I said, you're going to commit armed robbery. Is that what you're telling me? Because that's what you're going to do. And they said, well, we're going to issue you with a warrant to surrender the vehicle. So they turned up the next day on the door, and I said, have you got authority to be on the property? And they kept trying to talk to me. I said, if you don't have authority to be on the property, you're trespassing. And they kept trying to talk about the document they wanted to serve me. I said, well, you're now willfully trespassing. That's going to cost you $10,000. Now, he got the message, and after I think about 3 minutes, he said, well, I'll just leave it in the letterbox. So you can do whatever you want. Now, he left a document in the letterbox, which was to surrender my vehicle to the local police station within 10 days, or they gave him a specific day to do it.
Yeah.
Of course, it is not a legal document. So the next day, after it was supposed to be there, he turned up on the doorstep the next morning and said, you were supposed to surrender your vehicle to the police station yesterday morning. And my response to him was, do you have authority to be on the property? And the other guy, the other police officer, he was smart. He stood back on the footpath. Because this copper got a second dose of willful trespass because he had no authority to be on the property. Now, that was 2 months ago. I still have my car.
Okay. Yeah.
Because the key word there is surrender. Because it's a war.
Yeah.
And he's wanting me to surrender my property.
Which means willfully give it to them. Right.
Yeah. And I said, I do not acknowledge any of that action. If you want to steal my vehicle, you can do what you want, but you're going to have to steal it, and it's going to be armed robbery, because I'm not going to surrender it, because I am not belligerent. I am acting peacefully. And under the Lever Code, under the conventions of war, I'm not required to surrender it because it's not a weapon.
Okay.
People have to understand that this process of standing up to this draconian system requires resolve and patience. They're not going to lie down overnight, but there will be times when the police, once they know that they're going to lose their own houses over this, they won't pull you over. They'll see your car straight away. They'll know you, and they'll go, I'm not going to pull him over. He's fine.
Yeah. That's what you want.
I'm just going to let him go on his way.
Yeah.
It's not doing any harm to anyone. If I pull him over, it's going to cost me $50,000 straight away out of my pocket. One of the cops that I've got a commercial lien against. I saw him the other day pulling someone over. I said, "Oh, Carlo, how you doing? Been saving your pennies, mate, to pay off my commercial lien?" He said, "Oh, I just keep sending them to the chief commissioner." I said, "Oh, no, Carlo. No. That's a commercial lien against you in your personal and private capacity, mate. It's got nothing to do with the police force."
Ah, so that's what you do. Okay, you go after them personally, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Beautiful.
And he just looked at me like, "Oh," I said, "It's coming, mate. It's coming."
Love it. And what's the deal with a warrant? Because what actually is a warrant?
A war rant.
Ah.
It's a war rant.
Because isn't it some other
process.
type of? Yeah, I read somewhere very briefly that it was some other kind of instrument, like, I don't know, not a trust, but something else, like something you wouldn't expect when you just think of a warrant. Like what actually, because, you know, if they come on your property, like you don't have authority, go away, and they come back, "Oh, we've got a warrant issued from the courts. Now we do have authority." Like, how do you rebut that statement?
Show me the proof of the authority of the person who created that warrant. I want to see written proof that the person who issued that warrant had the authority to do it. I could write a piece of paper, James, saying, "I'm coming over to your house, you've got to surrender your house to me." I can call it a warrant.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's got any standing. We're talking about organizations, corporations. These are corporations, people signing on behalf of corporations over living people. The warrant only, if you read the warrant closely, because they had a warrant for my arrest when they turned up at the door. Okay, and they held it up at the glass so I could see it. It was the capital lettered entity. I said, "That's not me. Your warrant's to the wrong person. I am not that person." "Well, we've got a photo we believe is you." I said, "Well, you're creating joinder. That's not me. That's a non-living entity. You've got a warrant for a non-living entity, and you're telling me you're going to arrest me, the living man? And what if I don't open the door?" "Well, we're authorized to use force." I said, "Well, now I'm acting under duress. Everything I do from now on, I'm acting under duress because you have no authority and you are an armed bushranger at my door threatening to use force, which I will take it as that you are threatening to use that gun. Therefore, I surrender hors de combat."
What's that?
Under duress. And they arrested me and they took me off to the police station and they released me about 20 minutes later because they have no authority. They all got invoices for that. They all got invoices for around about 50 grand each.
So they arrested you because they had a warrant because you were driving without a license and unregistered. So what, they rock up at your house and they just, you know, we got the warrant, arrest you, take you down to the station. Then what, 20 minutes later, they're just like...
Yeah, this is where it's interesting because they send you a summons to go to court. Now, in the summons, it says, you should go to court. Doesn't mean you have to. You've got an option. You can express your rights and go, "Actually, no, thank you for the invitation. I'm not going to go." And you're entitled to do that. They cannot then arrest you because you exercised your rights. So the warrant was because I didn't turn up at court.
Oh, okay.
For a what they call a summary offence. So you don't have to turn up to court for a summary offence. So how can they then issue a warrant for your arrest when you choose not to? This is where the bullshit and the bluster comes in. So they turn up with a warrant and said, "That's not me," for starters. And I record every time I have an interaction with the police. I always record it.
Have you got those videos up on your YouTube channel? Or have you got them?
Yeah, I think they are. I think those are up on the YouTube channel for people to have a look at.
Yeah.
And you understand that the process will not resolve itself overnight. You've got to be patient. You've got to hold to your ground. And what I also do is I also issue judgments and I serve them on the court.
So what's that?
For instance,
judgment?
you are the only living being in the interaction. Because from the paperwork I've got, it's from one corporation to another corporation. Dead entities have no right to make a claim. Once you're dead, that's it. So if I've got a corporation making a claim, well, they're a dead entity. They've got no right to make a claim, not against a living being. If they're making a claim against another non-living being, well, that's a contract. Where's the contract? There is no contract. If there's no contract, there's no claim. And because I'm the only living man involved in this process, I have the authority.
Yes.
Therefore, as the only living man in the process, I'm making a judgment. And my judgment is the order that the matter be dismissed because it's trivial.
Yes.
And the law doesn't accommodate trivialities. There is no contract. I'm the only living man making judgment. I can make a judgment over non-living entities. That's what a magistrate does. He sits there and he makes a decision as a non-living entity over a contract dispute. So I make the ruling. Then when the matter goes to court, say, Your Honour, there's already been a ruling in this matter. Oh, well, we don't accept your jurisdiction. So that's interesting. I don't accept yours either.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do? If you don't accept my jurisdiction, you have to prove yours. Yeah. Because you've raised the issue of jurisdiction, not me.
I love it.
Since you've raised the issue of jurisdiction, now you can prove that you have jurisdiction. And if you can't, and they can't, so you let them fall into the trap. You don't go and say, challenge them. I'm challenging your jurisdiction. So I've already made the jurisdiction on this matter. I'm the living person in this matter. The matter's finished.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so you've been to court a few times?
Oh, a couple.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Couple, and I dare say there'll be a few more. One of my more recent ones is I decided I wanted to expose the fraud more. So I just went into the court and said, so who are you talking about? When they said, are you Alex? I said, well, who are you talking about? I'm confused. Well, I'm that person. I said, I don't understand who you are talking about. Can you put it in writing? And in the finish, he threw me out of the court, asked me to be removed from the court, and they went ahead ex parte, where the policeman actually admitted it wasn't a criminal matter. Well, if it's not a criminal matter, why was it filed as a criminal matter? He said it's a traffic matter, because I'd actually already sent them the documents to say that it was wrongfully filed as a criminal matter when it wasn't a criminal matter. There was no crime, there was no victim. And it had been wrongly filed, and this is the way they trick you, is they'll put your name first. So it would be Bartolo versus the Crown, prosecution, whatever, for a speeding fine.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, no, people don't notice this. The person who is mentioned first is the person paying. Okay. So they have switched it around so that you're paying and you're making the accusation and claim. How can you be, isn't the claim against you? What's going on here? It's all part of the deceit. So I put all these documents in. The police prosecutor already had them. They didn't want them read out. So the prosecutor said, Your Honour, this is not a criminal matter. It's a traffic matter. So there's no conviction, but they'd filed it fraudulently as a criminal matter.
Right.
All right. So now they made their little value judgment and they disqualified me from driving, cancelled my license for 2 years. And they called me back in afterwards. I was still hanging around. They called me back in because they realised that I actually didn't have a license.
Yeah.
So they called me back in and they said, oh, this, that, and the other. I said, well, Your Honour, how can you disqualify me from a license that I don't even have?
Mm.
Oh, you threw me out.
Yeah, right.
So I just went, okay, that's fine. And I went straight up to the court counter. I said, I want a copy of the court order, please. They printed out a copy of the court order. I said, right, I'd like to appeal this up to the higher court.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
Because now it goes before a judge, not a magistrate, before a judge.
Okay, what's the
And
difference?
all of the documents that I filed now have to be heard, which means the fraud is going to be exposed.
So you're waiting for that next case, right?
Yep. But in the interim, I'm going to send a court. They've already had a notice to dismiss the matter, but now I actually will be filing them a judgment notice that the matter has already been ruled on.
Okay. But
And they have to deal with it.
So you're going to take it up to a higher court. So what's the first court? You've got the magistrate's court.
Magistrate's court.
And then where are you going? Is it the Supreme Court?
No, then it goes to the county court.
The county court. Okay. But isn't the judge who's going to be sitting there like still going to be a Freemason and part of the whole deceit anyway?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But see, he's going to be given the choice to dismiss the matter or to be exposed as part of the fraud. See, if he gives the option that he can throw all the blame back on the policeman, so he can get an out and he can cover his butt.
Okay.
But if he doesn't, then the fraud gets exposed and he's not going to get promoted.
Who would the fraud get exposed to? Like, who would know? Like, because it'd only be you, wouldn't it?
Public record. See, magistrates' court stuff, it doesn't go on the public record. So a lot of people they think it's recorded and do it, but it doesn't necessarily go on the public record, and they can change anything.
Okay.
But once it gets up to the county court, he has to go by the law, by his rules and regulations, and he knows that if he doesn't, it goes to the high court. And you can subpoena things. You can go up to Supreme Court, and you can go to the High Court of Australia, and they don't want the fraud exposed.
Okay. Though, are most of the magistrates and judges and all the courts and the whole judiciary system, do you think they're like all Freemasons or just most of them? No,
I don't think that at all. I know that.
Oh, you know they're all Freemasons.
You don't get to go there unless you are. Because you're selected.
Okay. Interesting. So they're all bloody Freemasons.
All of them.
Yeah. Okay.
They all take an oath to the bar. Their oath is not to the people. Their oath is to the bar. And before you get any matter heard, the two things that you say to the clerk of the court, who is the person who's running the event, they're the real authority, is this being recorded for public record? Because I insist it is. And then you say to the judge, can you please revoke your oath to the bar before this matter proceeds? That's fun. See if they'll do that.
Yeah. Don't think they'll do that one.
And if they can't, say, well, who do you have an oath to? Because you can't have an oath to Queen Elizabeth because she's been removed from the jurisdiction. So who is your oath to?
Wow.
So, and you're asking me to swear on oath. I need to know that you're on an oath.
The bar is the Temple Bar in London, yeah? Or in the city of London?
Yeah. Part of the Crown.
Yeah, okay. And what's the significance of the bar again? It was just like a temple bar where they congregated and they started,
Well, it was where all the Freemasons concocted the whole idea of banking and law all being connected with medicine, that everything was controlled by them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what about filming in the courts? Do you go in there and do you film, or have someone else film you so you've got it, or they won't let you, or what's the deal?
Oh, they supposedly won't let you. That's why you insist that it's recorded.
But they won't, will they? And they won't give you a copy.
Oh no, you'll get copies and transcripts of stuff. I've got the audio copy of the policeman saying that it wasn't a criminal matter, it's a traffic matter.
Okay.
So thank you very much. You've just told me that you've committed a huge fraud in filing it as a criminal matter.
Wow.
Thank you.
And what about if, that they give you the summons to go to court, then I've heard you can send a letter back to request to go to a court of competent jurisdiction because in a magistrate's court, there's no jury, is there? When do you get a jury?
That's an interesting one.
How's that work?
There is supposedly no jury, but I found a little thing in the court handbook, the court magistrate's bench book, that says you can put a jury back into a magistrate's court. There's a way that you can do it.
Okay.
And you sit there and you have all of your people sitting at the back. Whenever the judge does something that is deemed to be unjust, you can call the magistrate on that by asking anyone else that's in the room who is an ordinary person with an understand of it to stand up if they believe it's unjust. And if they stand up, the magistrate has to stand down.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Why would they keep that in their system, though?
Well, it's hidden away in their system. They don't want people to know that. But they have to be seen to be fair. Therefore, you hide that away so people won't find out about it.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Have you ever tried that? Have you gone in and have some of your friends who are switched on? And then, because that would be fun. I could see you.
Oh yeah, look, the last time I was there, we were about to do it, and then the judge threw me out of the court.
Ah, okay.
So I was only in there for about a minute, and he threw me out. Yeah, so I said that's okay. We wanted to take it up to the county court level anyway. So
okay. Yeah, and isn't there a thing with? I think it's in the Constitution. A court has to have like 2 judges because they deem that one man shouldn't have the power to rule over another man. It should be at least 2 people, man or woman.
No, there should be a jury of 12.
Okay.
Minimum of 12 in a jury.
I mean for the judges or a magistrate in some of the different courts, not 1, but there should be 2. A
judge is not there to sit in judgment on the person who's been accused. The judge is there to run proceedings. You don't need 2 administrators to run the proceedings. What you need is that there is a sufficient number of judges of the case, which is the jury.
Okay.
In common law, you have to have a minimum of 12, and the same with their system. If you get tried for murder or something like that, you have to have a minimum of 12. Now here's an interesting thing about, let's say you've committed murder or bank robbery or something like that. There's a thing they call an arraignment. So the issue first gets presented to the magistrate's court, where you are arraigned. Now, what that is, that's putting the stamp of death on you so that they can hear it under their system. Okay? So if you go to a case and you say, I decline the arraignment, I wish to be heard by a common law court, they can't take you into their system. You have to be heard under a common law court. You can still be tried for murder and bank robbery and all of that, but not under their system. It has to be under common law system.
Oh. And they will allow that?
Well, if they don't, everything they're doing is under your duress. You haven't conceded to it.
Okay.
This is why a judge says to you, do you understand the charges against you? To which you reply,
nope.
So, well, what about killing somebody don't you understand? Do you understand what murder is?
Comprehend what it is, but I don't understand to anything.
Exactly. You don't understand because you're not standing under their authority. You've given them, you say, I am completely willing to be tried under a common law system before my peers.
Mm-hmm.
But I do not consent to be arraigned as a dead entity. But that's a whole, we're getting into heavier stuff now, which is down the track. Well, I think we've covered most of the road.
Yeah, probably enough for today. Just keeps on going on and on. It's good, but you could talk about this topic for hours and hours. I'd be happy to do another interview again whenever. And just
let's do it. Let's get some more questions together, and maybe people can fire questions back.
That's a good idea. I'll make some kind of post and ask people what kind of questions they want answered, and then I'll compile a big list, and it'll be like an Ask Alex show or something like that.
Yeah, we'll just do a Q&A. I'm not a lawyer at all, and I never give legal advice. But I talk about common law, and I talk about people's rights and how to handle yourself in their system. I don't have a problem with their system. It's a corrupt system. For some people it works, for some people it doesn't. But you should always have a choice. For those people who want to go under their system, they have a choice to do that. There's some points that I would file something under their system, and I'm going to. I've had a lot of people defaming me in the last couple of weeks. Big defamation.
Really?
Now I've got a choice where I can either file in a legal system or a common law system or both. And so I'll do that.
Okay, right. There you go. Fun and games ahead.
It's all, look, you've got to laugh. You've got to laugh at it. What it does is it shows human nature, and it shows, are you prepared to stand up for what you believe in, or will you cave in if the pressure gets too hard for you? And the people who don't cave in are the ones who are usually the most informed.
So what do you think I should do about that Vic Roads letter? Because I'm not going to, because they're like, to clear the defect notice. And it was just a sticker on my windscreen. It's like, I'm just thinking in my head, I don't need some fucking idiot to pull a sticker off my windscreen. I can do that. But they're trying to just ignore it.
No, look, it's like if you've got a mosquito that keeps annoying you, it's not going to go away. It's not going to go away until it's sucked the blood out of you.
There you go.
You go, yeah, well, exactly. So what you do with the mosquito in this case is you put the onus back on them. So you're the guys who are making the claim. If I was in your circumstance, I'd make sure that my living birth was recorded with a common law court, and that I had the ownership of the fictitious name. Now, that's the corporation, so you already do that. I'd put the onus back them and say, right, prove your authority.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Just to, happy to comply with, everything, provided you can supply with this. And I did this to Yarra City Council probably 3 years ago, when my partner got a parking fine. And I said, give it to me. And I said, okay. So I sent to them a letter, and I think it was 12 things of proof that I demanded from them before the matter could proceed. Happy to deal with it, provided you can provide me with proof of your authority over the roads, proof of your authority over this, proof of your authority over living peace. If you can provide me all of those documents, we can proceed. Happy to negotiate. Now, of course, they couldn't. So they handed the matter over to a debt collector.
Ah, yeah, good.
Right? So the debt collector rings me up and says, is this such and such? And I said, well, who's calling? I'm from this about this issue. And I said, well, I've got no contract with you. So if you've got a problem, I think you need to go back to City of Yarra, because I don't think they've been transparent with you, because there's been a lot of documentation that's been requested and they haven't supplied it. So they kept coming back, and they said, "Look, it's got nothing to do." Same with road tolls. I have the road toll people ringing me up, and they said, "Oh, can you identify yourself?" And I said, "Well, can you identify yourself?" "Oh, well, no, I'm from such and such." So, well, if you're not going to identify yourself, well, I'm not going to identify myself. What's the matter to deal with? Well, I'm from Centrelink. I said, well, I don't have any contracts with Citylink. So if you've got something, I think you better send it to me in writing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm getting that from Citylink. Like they're trying to charge me $350 now, and they keep on sending me texts. They've probably sent me, 20 plus text messages. This is your final warning. You have to pay. And then they've referred it on to some debt collector, Milton Graham, who's just sent me a couple text messages.
Yeah. You do this. You say, "I am more than happy to consider the situation. Can you please provide me a copy of the contract?"
Mm. Well, they haven't even called me. Yeah. Like no calls, just text messages, which you can't reply to. And I did send them a letter probably 3-4 months ago, asking for that kind of stuff, but they didn't send anything back. I'm just like, meh, just whatever.
You just have a paper trail. That's all you need, James. You just need a paper trail. If you're asking them and you're willing to resolve the matter, provided they can provide the documentation. If they can't provide the documentation, they've got no claim.
Mm-hmm.
It's as simple as that.
So do you suggest that you should always send them a letter? Like you shouldn't get a parking fine? Okay.
Always. You throw the onus back onto them straight away.
Mm-hmm.
Straight away, you throw it back. Say, "Thank you for your correspondence, X, Y, and Z. Please provide the following documentation for this matter to proceed."
Mm.
It's an offer of contract. When they send you a letter, when they put a parking fine on the window, it's an offer of contract.
Yeah, I mean, with a parking fine, because there's a whole thing like, what if you didn't get it? Like if it blew off your windscreen, which does happen to a lot of people, then they send a letter in the mail, "Oh, you haven't paid it yet. You owe us like the penalty reminder." Like amongst the other things of asking for authority, you could also just say, "Well, I didn't get this. Can you prove that, you even like offered this offer of contract to me? I didn't get any offer of contract. I have no idea what you're talking about."
They'll have a photo of it stuck under the windscreen.
Okay.
Right? Here's, for instance, in the one with my partner's car, they didn't have a photo of the car with the sign of the parking space.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing defining where the car actually was.
Yeah, but even if that's just a photo of the car having it, a bird could have come and taken it. Like a kid could have walked past and taken it.
Yeah.
That's not me.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's only an offer of contract anyway.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Okay, you made an offer of contract. Great, fantastic. It's not been accepted.
Yeah, exactly.
Show me that you have the authority over the public roads.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you go into a metered parking spot, okay, and you put money into the meter and it expires, then you've contracted.
Okay.
If you go into a metered parking spot and you don't put money into the meter, you haven't contracted.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because it's a public road. If you go into a private car park, that's different.
Yeah.
But a public road, you have the right to free and unrestricted travel.
Mm-hmm. And parking, etc. Because it's like, well, who
owns
the road? Who paid for the road?
Exactly. Who owns the road?
Taxes pay for it.
They have a contract of road management with the government. Okay, but road management does not give them the right to charge tolls or fees, even if the legislation says they do.
Mm-hmm.
The legislation does not apply to you, the living man or woman, without your consent.
Exactly.
If you and I made a contract, right, that anyone who parks out the front of our house has to pay $20 every time they park out the front of our house. You and I agree to that contract.
Yeah.
Along comes Fred Smith and he parks out the front of your house. And you go, oh, Fred Smith, he broke my rule with you. Fred Smith's going to turn and say, you know where you can go, mate.
Yeah.
I don't have to pay for parking out the front of your house. Yes, you do, because I made a contract with Alex that anyone who parks outside of the front of my house has got to pay.
Yeah. Ludicrous when you break it down. All right, Alex, let's call it. I'm starting to get hungry.
Look, mate, we could chat for ages, and I can't believe we've been doing 2.5 hours, and it's just flown through. But hopefully that helps some of your viewers get a better handle on what their rights are and if they want to move forward, how to unregister your car, don't ever show your license, and become a living man or woman traveling freely.
Mm-hmm. And I know people will want to get into contact with you, because I would get comments on the YouTube channel and stuff. What's the best way for people to follow you or to get more advice from you? Or no, not advice, information. What do you suggest for that?
Look, usually by email is the best way, and that's the moot court of Terra Australis at gmail.com. And usually I'll get back to people within 2 or 3 days. But I'm hoping just by talking about this, more and more people will become aware of it, and they won't need to harass me. If they want a copy of the affidavit, for instance, and how to do that and how to free themselves up, I'm more than happy to send them all of those documents via an email.
What you could do with the documents, send them to me, and then I can upload them into my group and then make it so people in the group can easily access it. So you're not.
Oh, look, that'd be great, mate. That'd take a pressure off me, and I'd be able to get my documentaries done. So
yeah,
that'd be fun. So I'm more than happy to do that. And look, I've got some templates that I've been constructing with some pretty cluey people around Australia, like Zev Freelander and Daniel Lucas, etc. We've been constructing a few documents about the form that you send to the Registrar General, instructing them to pay the fee, whatever it is, and also an order to dismiss. So I'll send those through to you as well, so that people can sort of see where we're heading with this. Because the more that we wake up, the more that we're going to be free.
Absolutely, fantastic. All right, thanks again, Alex, for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure. It's been really fun, actually.
Yeah, it has been cool.
Totally enjoyed it.
And maybe next time we can do a Q&A, and maybe we can start talking about councils and land.
Yeah, that would be good.
That'd be
I've got
fun.
a friend who was asking about land the other day. He was looking into that. But yes, okay, we'll sign out now. Thanks,
Cheers,
guys,
mate.
for watching.
Bye.
You've been watching the Conscious Truth
Network. I'm your host, James Bartolo. And remember to like, comment, subscribe, and to share this video. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned. There's plenty more to come.